Now we're going to move on to the caniform carnivores. So again, we're dealing with the order Carnivora. We're looking at the suborder Caniformia, the dog-like carnivores. We just looked at the Feliformia. We looked at one family from those, the family Felidae, the true cats. And we were only able to look at one out of the 7 families of feliform carnivores. However, we have much better representation of the Caniformia here in the lab. We actually have 8 of the 9 families represented here. So the first one we're going to look at is the Canidae, the actual dog family. And the first species we're going to look at is one that we're all pretty familiar with, is the coyote, Canis latrans, or latrans. Okay, these are amazing animals, much maligned. I do actually have a real skull of a coyote, but it hasn't been cleaned up, and it's not cleaned enough to show the features. So we're going to use a model here again, and then we're going to look at a wolf and 2 types of foxes. Okay, so this is typical of a coyote skull, and you notice right away it's quite different from the cat skulls that we just looked at. For one thing, it has a long snout or rostrum here, and well development of the turbinal bones in the nasal sinuses, so it's going to have a really well developed sense of smell. Also, when we turn the skull over, you'll see, yes, it is a carnivore. You know, it's got well-developed carnassial teeth, but they're halfway up the jaw, and the back end of the carnassial has a crushing surface on it, and behind it are regular molars that are more bunodont. They're bunodont-like molars. So you see these. So this is premolar 4 here. 1, 2, 3, 4. So this tells you this is the carnassial, and right behind it, and then we have 2 molars. Now we look at the lower jaw, you'll see that same thing applies. Again, long, thin jaw, which is characteristic of most canids, and grasping jaw. These are cecodont teeth in front of the carnassial. This is the lower carnassial here. Okay, it's M1, molar 1, and you can see that there are 4 premolars in front of it, but then there's also more bunodont-like molars behind it, including a bunodont shelf here. See this shelf on the rear end of the lower carnassial. Again, these have well-developed jaws, but they have a little bit more movement than the cat. The cat skulls are the true killers, whereas these animals, coyotes, can eat fruit. They can eat all sorts of things to survive. So this is your typical dog coyote-like skull. Again, many have a well-developed sagittal crest here for the attachment of muscles and so on, to give them a powerful bite. If you want to, so that's Canis latrans. Well, let's take a step up here, and we're going to take a look at the wolf. And this is a wolf skull. This is a real wolf skull by comparison. And you'll see it's like the coyote skull, but it's just bigger and more robust, better developed sagittal crest on this one at least. You can see a number of the teeth are missing here, but I think this animal was shot as well. But you can see it's a large, formidable skull with well-developed armaments here in terms of the teeth. Here's the carnassial in the upper left, carnassial in the upper right here. And let's look at the lower jaw. This is the lower jaw on the left side here. And notice how it occludes with the two carnassials occlude here. That lower carnassial, this one right here, you'll see this thing is nearly an inch long. That is a really big carnassial tooth. And again, it has these secodont slicing and dicing and holding teeth. It uses the canine and these premolars here that are to hold on to and to tear into flesh. That's make them secodont. But behind those again, they have more bunodont-like molars, and you see it even more so on the upper skull. You have here's the carnassial, and here's two molars. This is premolar 4, and molar 1, and molar 2, and you can see they're more like regular crushing molars. They're more bunodont-like. Okay. So this is Canis lupus, the wolf, red wolf. I have another skull here from another wolf. You can see its sagittal crest isn't quite as pronounced, but this animal was shot as well. The brain case is damaged, and but you can see it's an older animal too. You can see there's tremendous amount of wear on these teeth. This is an old wolf. I don't know anything about its sex or anything, but in any case, let's put the wolf and the coyote skull side by side, and you just see the difference. Wolf skull is so much bigger. Okay, now I'm gonna bring this coyote skull down the bench here so you can look at some other specimens we have here. Here we have a gray fox. And gray foxes are present on our campus. Some of you have probably seen them. And the scientific name lives up to their appearance. Urocyan cinero argenteus. So anyway, that's Latin. Urocyan. Urocyan means tail, dog. Euro is tail and cyan is dog. And cinero argenteus. Argenteus is silvery, and I've forgotten what cinero stands for. But I'm going to show you a pelt here of the gray fox. Beautiful pelt. And notice this black stripe. It's got a black stripe over here, but it's really pronounced on the tail. It's running down the top of the tail. You've got this black stripe running all the way down, and it's black at the tip as well. And this is a diagnostic character for telling gray foxes apart. These animals are highly arboreal. Gray foxes are really good climbers. They can climb way up into trees, and they're common on campus here. Sometimes they get into the attics of some buildings on campus, but their natural home is woodland, like oak woodland, where they can readily climb up into trees. They can even nest in trees, and they can sleep up in trees. There was one that used to sleep high in a tree outside the old science building where nursing and math and some other departments are now, but the tree was subsequently modified and they didn't go up there anymore, but you still see them regularly on campus, gray foxes. Now, if we take a quick look at the skull here, you can see the skull is, somewhat similar to that coyote skull, but at least it's got a long rostrum. And if you look at the teeth, you'll see carnassials with cecodont teeth in front, but some bunodont molars behind that. And so these are, you know, omnivorous carnivores with a stronger tendency towards carnivory. Again, remember we saw the big sagittal crests on both the coyote and on the wolf. Well, you don't see that on a gray fox. Instead, you see this striking pattern of two crests here, one on each side, like they come together. And if you look at them like this, you'll see that they're U-shaped. And the genus name is Urocyon. So that's an easy way to try to remember this. Look, the skull has got a U-shaped crest here on it. Instead of having a single sagittal crest, it's got these separate ones here. And that's an easy way to tell this species apart from the next one, which we're going to look at, which is the kit fox. Some people misidentify the foxes on campus as kit foxes, but they're not kit foxes at all. This is a kit fox again. Kit foxes are smaller and more agile than gray foxes. I call them the ballet dancers of the dog family, and you see them out in the desert and they're running through vegetation and hopping as they go. They're beautiful animals to watch. These animals are very small and very light. An adult male or female would weigh about 5 pounds. Just 5 pounds. Just think about that. That's 5 pounds. A gray fox will weigh a lot more than that and is a lot stockier. And they have these long, thin legs that are adapted to running. These are they're closely related to swift foxes of the Great Plains, and you can see where they get that name, swift. So these animals can run at pretty high speeds to chase down prey like kangaroo rats, or to escape from coyotes, which are their mortal enemies. Coyotes see them as competitors and kill them on sight if they can catch them. They don't really kill them for prey. Notice the tail here on this gray fox. Notice it doesn't have that black stripe down the middle. It does have a black tail tip. Here you can see the black tail tip, but it doesn't have, I'm going to put this underneath it so you can see it better. It's very black tail tip. And, but it doesn't have that black stripe that runs down the top, like you see on the gray fox here beside it. Okay. Also, both of these animals can look very different in summer to winter, especially the kit fox. They have their winter coat is very like a gray fox, except it doesn't have that black band on the top of the tail. And also, relatively speaking, their ears are much bigger. You see the ears here are much bigger than they would be on the gray fox. And the skull is different. Remember, on the gray fox, we said it has this U-shaped crest on the top here, but it's just a light fox skull. I couldn't call it anything else, because you're going to see some similar other skulls of about this size, but they're going to be very different in shape. This is a kit fox skull. Okay, now you can see it's similar in some respects to the gray fox skull that we just looked at. It's about the same size, about the same shape. It's a little thinner, more pointy, for want of a better word. There are other characteristics we would use too for keying out these skulls, but since you're not actually able to handle the skulls and examine the specimens, it's not fair to expect you to be able to use keys like that. But here you can see a development of the sagittal crest, but it's a more modest one in the kit fox. So again, this is a kit fox skull. Let's take a quick look at the teeth, and you see the same pattern that we see in the other canids, the other 3 canids you looked at. You've got these sectorial teeth, these slicing and dicing teeth in front of anterior to the carnassial. That's the carnassial right there. But right behind it, look what we got. We've got, sorry, I moved the camera. You've got molariform teeth. You've got bunodont molariform teeth. So these animals are primarily carnivorous. You can really see that in the lower jaw. Look at that line of teeth from the lower carnassial here with these 4 sharp little teeth in front of it on each side. And kit foxes prey heavily on kangaroo rats and small desert rodents, but it's still got a few molars behind here, which you don't see in cats. And look at that long, thin jaw again. This animal's adapted, as I said, for catching things like kangaroo rats. So that was a quick overview of the Canidae or Canidae, the dog family, the first of the families of the Caniformia, suborder Caniformia. So I'm going to stop here. Then now we're going to move on to some of the others, the bears and skunks and so on.